Don, what week of fantasy football are we in?
Week 11, because Green and Ariel are 10-0.
Yeah, I don't even get it. Is it over yet? Like, how many more weeks do we have to put up with this?
And it's like 4 for you. I mean, I might make the playoffs in one of my leagues, so that's kind of exciting. But like, it's really getting painful to watch some of these games. Like
It
those
really
games, those
is.
4 o'clock games on Sunday were
How
terrible.
did you think they were going to be good? We'll talk about that and more on this week's Three and Out. Welcome to another episode of I Don't Give a Shit. Three and Out, the fantasy football podcast. I'm your host, Wade Cavati, and joining me, as always, are the greatest fantasy football nerd dads. I think I just made that word up. I mean, I'm going to go with that. Fantasy football nerd dads. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Mike the Professor Dunton and Chris Fanduel Fee Fiamano. Fee, how you doing over there?
I'm good. I'm good. Everything's great. Happy. Things are good. Fantasy sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's the usual.
yeah, the usual. Dunton, how you doing over there?
Yeah, like even if your fantasy team is good, doesn't fantasy kind of suck this time of year? Like, aren't you kind of like
Over it.
over like waiting for the playoffs to see what's gonna happen? Like,
It
yeah.
really is the hard time of the year, and I feel like we go through this. That one season, like 2 seasons ago, 3 seasons ago, I remember I just started getting drunk in the middle of the season because I couldn't anymore. I didn't even make I didn't even prepare. I would just drink and make picks, and I
I do remember
I
that.
usually did better. Anyway,
Hey, you can't
let's
do worse, that's for sure.
right. We can't do worse than what he did last week. Dunn, I'm not even sure why you showed up on last week's show. We'll get to that when we get to start.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. What do you want me to do? I don't know.
Let's get into this week's buy it or bullshit. Fee, we're going to start with you. We're kind of talking about how it gets tiring and how everyone's having crappy fantasy seasons. Specialization it's damaged fantasy football.
Uh, so what do you mean by specialization exactly?
How even okay, well, obviously with the running backs, there's too many running backs. I think there's too many wide receivers. I think every team has a two tight end set that they use the tight ends. And I quite honestly, I think too many teams have two quarterbacks going on.
Right. So you mean specialization for fantasy teams.
And for every like the trickle down from NFL to fantasy, yeah.
Right. Well, I think so. I think if we're talking about running backs, I think yes. Um, the specialization has hurt it. Only because when we're talking about running backs, you're talking about some guys catch the ball out of the backfield, some guys can block on third downs, on
Yep.
passing downs, some guys can only run the ball on first and second downs because they can't catch. So like that there's the whole running back by committee situation that kind of screws everybody fantasy wise, right? So if we're talking about running back specialization, yes, that is a pain in the butt.
Let me interrupt you real quick. It's a question for you with what you said. When did that become okay? When did it become okay that you as a running back can only run forward on first and second down and then you can't do anything? That was not okay when we were little. Joe Morris was 5'2" and the guy
Yeah.
ran through everybody. He didn't come off the field. Okay. Like
Yeah.
when did it become okay? Oh, well, at least you can move forward. Like,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I don't know. It's made fantasy infinitely harder. That's for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Dutton, what do you think?
I mean, I think a lot has changed fantasy, right? I mean, I think it's just one more on top of the pile of changes in rules, changes in offenses, changes in the way that defenses can defend have all changed fantasy. I mean, think of the number of times that quarterbacks are just throwing the ball up, hoping for a pass interference,
Yeah.
right? They're not really looking to make anybody get fantasy points. They're just hoping for pass interference. And they'll get that chunk yards and then they can move down the field. And we're like, oh, yay, no more points for anybody. So I think the specialization is just another like chink in the armor of fantasy points and how they decrease, which is why people look for new ways to earn fantasy points. I feel like when you start to look at the new scoring that people are adding and wrinkles in scoring and things like that. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So listen to this 18, 24, 18, 4, 7, 22, 26, 10, 11. That's Brees Hall. All right. We're talking about top 3 pick in the draft. Think about for the first 24 years of fantasy football, if you were picking a guy in the top 3, like Marshall Faulk, you didn't have to worry about anything. You knew you had a 20-point edge on everybody, right? Like LaDainian
Yeah,
Tomlinson.
when the game started, you knew you had 14 points easily,
Right.
right?
Easily. You don't
Easily.
know that anymore. Listen to Saquon Barkley, 31, 14, 20, 12, 5, 25, 11, 30. The guy's all over the place. Unless you have like Bijan, Derrick Henry, or even I don't even know if Justin Jefferson is that guy anymore. But like there isn't that guy at any
Well,
position.
there is that guy though. It's like Chuba Hubbard, who you're not picking in the first
Right
round,
there.
you know?
Yes, exactly. But you look at the first round this year, AJ Brown, Tyreek Hill, CD Lamb,
Right. Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey,
Yeah,
like
you're the
to your
first round
point, like the
picks.
Chase Browns and the Chuba Hubbards are the guys that are going to win you a championship. The guys that you invest on, it's amazing. And I don't know, like there's just not that workhorse, like could you imagine Randy Moss and Chris Carter each caught the ball for what 1,200 yards and 20 touchdowns a year? I exaggerate, but
Right.
a lot. And now it's like you can't, for some reason, these offenses can't sustain multiple people. It's so weird to me. But what else? Okay, so you're talking about rules and penalties and stuff. What else do you think is hurting fantasy? Because fantasy's driving me nuts this year. Like, there's no. We sit here and for 4 years we gave people good advice, and now we're throwing darts. It
Well,
used to be.
I think it's a lot. I think we've talked about injuries. We talked about I always was the defender until recently of they happen all the time, but this year they're outlandish because I think the injury takes people. I think players are more apt to stay out longer than they used to. So it
Yeah.
makes you trying to pick your fantasy roster a little bit more difficult on a weekend when you see like so and so is a game time decision. Okay, well, so and so, thank you very much. But like I need to know if you're playing.
Yeah.
Um, then I think coaches, like, like I have 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, but I'm going to run. I mean, who was that guy who scored the touchdown for the Dolphins on Monday night? I never heard of him.
Yeah. I don't know a lot of these guys. Johnny Begadona Wilson, whatever the guy.
Who was he? Washington, right?
Yeah, the guy that we were making fun of 5 weeks ago that we didn't even know he played college football actually scored a touchdown this week. Like, what the hell? The Eagles have how many more weapons do the Eagles need? And Johnny Wilson is catching a touchdown. Like, what? And then we have to watch the Falcons Saints play football. Like, oh, okay, and then Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's like one of the only reliable fantasy players this
Not
year.
anymore.
And then he goes to the Jaguars. And then you look at Jared Goff, who first wins a football game by throwing for 80 freaking yards and 3 touchdowns, and then wins a football game by throwing 5 interceptions. And meanwhile, like it's like, what did he get you fantasy points wise with that? Like 4? Like,
Yeah, not much.
what's going on?
Okay, really quick. In the past 3 weeks, I have won 2 fantasy games where my quarterback has scored less than 7 points.
God, can you imagine? That didn't happen back in the day.
And I've put up over 100 points both
ago.
those weeks too, because of like wide receivers and other things. But seriously, like that, yeah, to your point, Wayne, it didn't happen back in the day. Like it's chaotic. It's a weird, but even scoring, like quarterback scoring is down.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
it's I think just in general, I mean, I'm not a stat guy. Like I love other people to tell me numbers, but I would think that overall scoring in the NFL has to be down this year.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, it is. Yeah. You know that I dive into all the stats, and I mean I just gave you game logs of people
Right.
all over the place. Like I love stats, and yeah, it's down.
Yeah.
Hey, you're shaking your head. Anything else to add before we move on to the next one?
No, I mean I agree with everything Dutton is saying, and you too. I mean, injuries are definitely a big part of it, and you're getting second and third string guys that are out there on the field, and you don't know who's going to get the ball, you don't know who's going to score, and you don't know who's going to get all the fantasy points. Even though fantasy points are down because scoring is down and stats are down. So I mean, it's all kind of relevant, right?
Or do you think that we're just Are we getting to the where our uncles and our dads were back in my day?
We are get off my lawn, guys. We are totally get
Because
off
that's
my
just
lawn,
where we
guys.
are. That it's just like I want to see Ronnie Lott eat his pinky off in the middle of a game because he told him he can't go back in, and he said, "Screw you, cut it off."
I don't know.
So part
yeah.
of the problem is we talk a lot about season long fantasy when there's like 1,000 other different kinds of fantasy
That's a
you
good
can play.
point. That's a great
There's dynasty. There's
daily.
Daily, week to
keeper
week,
leagues.
right.
There's daily. I talk about DFS all the time. I'm actually in a DFS league where you pick a new lineup every week, just like you would for daily fantasy, except that you have a cumulative scoring. And so there's a whole bunch of different things, different types of fantasy that you could do to kind of offset the injury situation, right? Or which is causing a lot of what we're talking about now, I think.
Yeah.
I think it kind of stems from injuries and having guys not play games and having to figure out backup situations and guys that you can put into your lineup that'll replace the guy that you thought that you were going to have in your lineup to begin with, the superstars. So, I think a lot has to do with injuries and a lot has to do with the fact that, we're talking about season long specifically when there's a lot of other fantasy type games and leagues out there that kind of mitigate that a little bit more than season long would.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, and that wasn't around until what, 5, 6 years ago, right? So it is changing the game that you have these other options. It's a great point. Let's move on to the next question. Dunton, we'll start with you. We just started with Fee. The Bears are regretting not taking Jaden Daniels.
I think it's one of many regrets the Bears are having right now. I think not firing Matt Eberflus might be the higher one of the regrets. I think the Bears are just regretting a lot of decisions. I think the Bears are just one of those teams that's destined to never have a good quarterback. And it's because even if they pick a good quarterback, they'll somehow ruin said good quarterback, and then said good quarterback might go somewhere else and be good. Like I seriously want to play a game of would Caleb Williams be Jaden Daniels on the Commanders, and would Jaden Daniels be Caleb Williams on the Bears? You know what I'm saying? Like,
good question.
We can't do it, but it'd be interesting to somehow
someone go buy Madden and make that happen, and then let us know what it looks like. Fee, what do you think?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here, right? First of all, I don't think Caleb Williams is a bad quarterback. I think that he's had a bad situation that he's had to deal with. Yes, I also think Jaden Daniels is probably better than him. He looks better than him for sure. But also, Shane Waldron was the offensive coordinator in Seattle last year before he signed on with the Bears. And the Seattle guys last year hated him. They had, no one had nice things to say about this guy, about how he was running their offense. JSN was non-existent last year, if you recall. DK Metcalf was good. And actually, I guess Tyler Lockett was okay too, but like they weren't superstar type guys. No one was putting up, huge numbers either. And then now the Bears sign him and get him on to coach and be the offensive coordinator for them with a brand new quarterback. And we've all seen the results of that, right? And
to
so,
counter your point, Geno Smith is leading the league in passing.
Right, but that's not a counterpoint. I mean, that's
that's an addition to.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, right, exactly. So, I think that he's just been in a bad situation, and that's unfortunate. Because it shouldn't be like that.
They could have had his coach. They could have had Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. Yeah. The Bears are just a bad organization.
And they have all sorts of weapons, but the problem is their offensive line.
Right.
And that is a big problem, like across the NFL. when it
Yeah.
doesn't matter who your quarterback is. Yeah, like sometimes if your quarterback is good enough, they can kind of overcome that a little bit. But if you have a bad offensive line, you're not going to have a good team. Like
Hmm.
you can overcome that a little bit and win a few games here and there, but you're not going to be a really good team in the NFL for an entire season when you have a bad offensive line.
100%. Yeah, I agree with you, and that's a big problem. And you said it's like an epidemic right now. Like
Yeah.
there are way more teams with a bad offensive line than there are good. But I want to say this: in Week 7, it was our second buy, hold, or sell, and I proposed the thought of selling Caleb Williams, if you guys remember, and you both said hold. And then, if you remember, I went through it, and he had those 3 huge weeks. And I said he played 3 of the 4 worst defenses in the NFL. And Fee, I remember you said, now I kind of wish I had him to trade him. Okay.
Right.
So
Right.
since that show, his numbers, remember he had a bye. So he only had 3 games since that show, not the full 4. 10 points, 9 points, and 6 points.
And
Okay.
it's going to get worse. And
It's
it's
only going
you
to get
see
worse
his
because you got more
schedule now.
Vikings, you got
It's
more Lions, you got all
Packers.
these teams coming at Packers. And it's going to be bad news for this
Yeah,
guy.
it's not going to be good.
And Jaden Daniels is only going this way.
Right.
That's up if you couldn't see where my hand went. Fee, is it time to bench Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, yes, they should, but I doubt that it's going to happen. Um, so, I mean, he's very clearly a big part of the problem that the Jets are having, but I just don't see them benching him,
Yeah.
just because of who he is, right? And the amount of money, I guess, that they're paying him. But, who is their backup quarterback? Do we
Wasn't it
even?
Tyrod Taylor, I think?
Oh, it
Yes.
is Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he's actually pretty good. Maybe they actually really should bench him and see what
He's good
Tyrod's got.
enough. He's good enough to be good with Garrett Wilson
Oh yeah,
And Devontae Adams.
and Brees Hall.
And Brees Hall, right? He's good enough to do that. Dutton.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to bench him, but I mean, I would love to watch that conversation happen between Mr. Ego himself, Aaron Rodgers, and the interim. Who is the even interim coach of the Jets right now? I don't even know. I thought Aaron Rodgers was the coach of the Jets.
That's
I
what
mean,
I think it is.
I mean, like, so yeah. I mean, they're not going to bench him. They should bench him. But maybe the Jets are actually playing this one smart, and if they keep playing him and they're bad enough, they'll get a better draft pick.
Yeah. The only reason I can see it happening is because, like you said, the interim coach maybe just be like, "I'm not gonna. They're firing me. I haven't won a game yet, right? Like, I'm just gonna do it and just do it just to ruffle feathers and show that he has some balls." But I don't. I mean, he looks every bit of 41 or 40, whatever he is. His arm, it doesn't even look like he's throwing right. He can barely move. Like, it's bad news bears, man.
It's not the way Tom Brady retired. It is not the way Peyton Manning retired. It is definitely more of the
Phil Sims,
yes.
unfortunately,
Mhm.
just completely deteriorated. Now that Sam Darnold, I should say, now that the Sam Darnold we all love and know is back after the last 2 weeks, how worried are you about the Vikings, Dutton?
I'm very worried if you're looking at this from we had a good shot at doing well from the Vikings non-fantasy real NFL style, because you should be really worried because the Packers are getting healthy, and I think this is about you're going to see a run on the Packers here, which could scare the Vikings. The Bucks are about to play the easiest part of their schedule, which means the Vikings and the Bucks are then fighting for a wild card. And if Sam Darnold is going to look like that, I think you should be worried. Fantasy wise,
Against the Jaguars.
right. And then fantasy wise, I mean, we said it. You were definitely, standing on that, pounding the desk of he's still Justin Jefferson. And I agree with you, he is. But if you're going to look like that, Sam Darnold, then you got to be a little worried, right?
Yeah.
So I would be worried fantasy wise, yes.
Faith.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be worried both ways, right? For real and fantasy wise. I mean, he has not looked good. Yeah, he was, came out like gangbusters the first 5 weeks of the season, but that they lost their starting offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And then yes, they, traded for another one because they think they have something going, but he has not looked good at all. And I'm not really sure why because they have Justin Jefferson, they have Jordan Addison, Aaron Jones has been pretty solid running the ball.
Hawkins is
Um,
back.
I think part of the problem is while their
Played too many
defense
games well.
while their defense is really good, and they rely a lot on the blitz, I think that real quarterbacks, when they play real quarterbacks, they can handle that too well, and it renders their offense kind of useless, right? Like the other teams stay on the field a lot longer.
Mm,
They don't have the ball as much. They don't have as many possessions.
more pressure on
And
Sam.
and there's a lot more pressure on a guy who we know is not a superstar quarterback, right? He's just an average guy who was playing really well, but now all of a sudden there's a lot of pressure and he's kind of crumbling a little bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's time to definitely be worried about everyone, even Justin Jefferson. But I mean, Jefferson's still going to be the best of the bunch. But yeah, I
Right.
think it's time to worry. Uh, Mike McCarthy. Let's make fun of the Cowboys as much as we can this week because they're playing the Texans. Does he get a pass because of the injuries? Is he going to make it through the season? Let's one question in two parts. Fee, we'll start with you. Does he get a pass injuries? And if he doesn't, does he get fired before the season's over?
So he should not get a pass because of the injuries, because they were bad before they had
Sure
injuries.
were.
And so really it's not a cause and effect situation, right? It's there's not be they're it's not that they're bad because they have injuries. They've been bad for a while. And whether or not he gets fired before the end of the season, I don't think so. I think Jerry Jones will just ride him out, although Jerry Jones is kind of crazy, so sometimes
Right.
yeah, I guess I could see him doing something like firing him in the middle of the season, because it doesn't really matter at this point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but then what do you do? Who do you replace him with? Like,
Right.
just a random guy, and then, try to hire someone next year. Yeah, you might as well just stick with him for the rest of the year. Because I'm sure his contract is guaranteed, so you're going to be paying him the money anyway. So you
Yeah.
stick with him for the rest of the year, and then fire him at the end of the year and get someone new.
What do you think?
I don't think they're going. Hold on, I'm looking something up really fast. I don't think they fire him at the end of the year. I think Mike McCarthy knew that he was a lame duck when the season started, and he was not renewed on his contract. Right? I mean, his contract was expiring at the end of the year. They didn't renew it. I think he knew the writing was on the wall. That being said, I'm just looking something up. They have a bye this week, right? The Cowboys?
No, they play the Texans on Monday night.
They play the Texans Monday night. Okay. So they're probably not supposed to win that game. So that's not a big deal. Do they have a game after that? No. They have a bye. So yes. Oh no, they play the Commanders. So I think if he does fire him, he will fire him after they lose to the Commanders, before they play the Giants on Thanksgiving, just because it'll give people a reason to watch the game, because there'll be a new coach. Because Jerry Jones wants attention. Sorry that it took long to get to that, but I wanted to look at the schedule. But yeah, I
was
think
great.
he fires him then.
Yeah, I like how you got there. I thought that was important to add that stuff. But how is Dable not fired? Isn't this the perfect week to fire him because you have a bye? Like, you have extra time to work with whoever.
He shouldn't have gotten on the damn plane. He shouldn't have been allowed on the plane.
Neither should Daniel Jones. And I've been
I was just gonna say the same thing.
I've been the biggest forgiver of Daniel
They need
Jones.
to fire Daniel Jones, is what it is.
Well,
They need
you
to
gotta
fire
fire the
the
guy that won't
GM.
put in Drew Lock.
They need to, I mean, the Giants seriously need to clean house. Daniel Jones, Brian Dable, GM, whatever his name is, gotta go. Gotta go. They all gotta go. They gotta start fresh.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick. Fee, you're gonna get Bill Belichick out of this. Just think of it that way. Like, you're getting Bill Belichick.
That doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he didn't show that he knew how to draft people the last few years in New England. That's for sure. And they're gonna have to go into a full rebuild. You need someone that's gonna draft the right pieces. Let's get right to Kid Robot: buy, sell, and hold. Well, we were just talking about the miserable Dallas Cowboys, so let's keep making fun of them. What are you gonna do with CD Lamb? Buy, sell, hold, fee.
Selling. I'm selling him. You don't want any Cowboys on your team.
Sell him, but nobody wants to buy him, so you just stuck with him.
That's true.
Yeah, Yeah, I would pretty much. I know what you would. Some people would say I wouldn't sell him because you're not going to get the draft value that you
Right,
drafted
right.
him at. But honestly, I would try to get anything I could for him.
Anything you can. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Fee, Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I'm buying Tyrone Tracy because he looks fantastic, and there's no reason to think that he won't continue to get the volume and the stats and the touches that he deserves, really.
Yeah, Dunton.
His fumble cost them the game, but he's not the reason the team lost the game, right? I mean,
It's
they
the
should have
reason the
been
team was in the game.
right, 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 right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would buy him. If you can buy him, buy him.
I think I would sell him because I think they're going to have to pull Daniel Jones at some point. And I think that's when the beginning of the end just happens, and that team is going to be a complete shit show. But I do think he's great. I have him in our league, and I'll start him every week. I think he's great. But if I had him, I would definitely sell him. But I do have him. I'm going to hold him. I'm not going to try to sell him. But if someone wants him and gives me something good, I'm going to take it now while he's before
Right.
the nights
Strike
complete.
while the iron's hot.
Chuba Hubbard. Dutton, I know you have him invested in a couple leagues.
I'm holding him like Russell Crowe is holding the line in Gladiator.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm holding him too. He's just too good to kind of get rid of.
Consistent.
You know what I love?
Yeah.
You know what I loved about him? He signed a 4-year deal and came out and had his best game of the year, right?
Yeah.
It's like he wasn't like, yeah, I got paid, now I can just cruise. He's like, let's go get it. Yeah, and yeah,
On a terrible team. And
on a
he's
terrible
consistent.
team. I'm holding. Bucky Irving, Dutton. I guess we got to start with you on that one too.
I'm holding. I mean, he's gonna get touches. The Bucks are all over the place. Who knows? I mean, here's the deal: the Bucks schedule opens up right now. Like they should seriously win 6 out of, or what do they have? 6 games left. They should win 5 out of 6, if not all 6 of these games. And I think he'll be a big part of that offense.
Fee.
Well, that's kind of exactly why I want to sell Bucky Irving, because the Bucks are all over the place, and they have they're like a three-headed monster back there, and you never know what's going to happen. Looks like Rashad White for the last 2 weeks has been their main guy. Like, yeah, Bucky Irving was around prior to that and was having some good games, but like, I don't think he's someone who you can trust. So
Yeah. I wrote "Who cares?" because we're gonna have to hear what you just said. The three-headed monster. Who's it gonna be this week? Oh, it's gonna be a nightmare. I wouldn't want to buy him, and I guess I would sell him if someone wants him, but it's gonna be a nightmare. This was a weird one, but I saw his name come up for fantasy trade deadline buyers. Kenneth Walker the third. I don't know why you would sell him if you had him. He's great. But I'm interested to hear what you have to say, Fee.
yeah, I would hold him. I mean, just like you said, he's been really good. I don't think there's any reason to get rid of him.
Yeah, yeah. It was weird that he was coming up as like a fantasy football trade deadline guy.
Yeah, that's right.
Dutton.
Yeah, I mean, what are you giving me if I sell him to you? Because
Right.
it
Like,
better
you
be
have to
something
give up a
really
lot.
good, right? So yeah, I mean, I'll sell him if you're gonna give me,
Hey.
AJ Brown. Or
Yeah,
something.
I saw him in two different websites had him in their buy at the deadline, and I'm just like, that's gonna cost too much. It seems like you'd be giving too much to stay in contention just to get the one guy, right? It's like, why do it? All right. Let's move on to second down. It's time for locks of the week. I lost again because that's what I do. And Fee, and the amazing thing is I'm up on the year in real life, and on this show, I can't get anything right. Yeah, Fee and Dutton, you both won. We went with Dutton's Steelers pick, so the 3-and-out pick was right. So we had a good week there. Fee, you're still the best record at 7-3 on the season. So it's your honor, your honor.
Yeah, I I had some trouble trying to pick a game this week.
Yeah,
I
did
really
too.
I really wanted to take the Steelers getting points at home against
like
the
that
Ravens.
too.
Now, I know that you hate taking division games, and I get all of that. However, Mike Tomlin, especially as a dog at home, is like his record is like insane. They cover 80 or 90% of the time or something crazy like that. But the problem that I'm having with that is Hightower has been ruled out of that game.
Oh,
And that really hurts their defense a lot.
Mm.
And so while I think that they can probably stay with Baltimore, especially because Baltimore's defense has been really bad, um, I I just don't think that that's a game that I can go near. So I'm gonna kind of stay away from that one, even though I really wanted to take the Steelers. So because I was having so much trouble, I decided to just take the Lions minus 12 and a half against what, the Jaguars, right? I think they're playing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, so and they're at home, they're in the dome. I'll take the Lions minus 12 and a half. No Trevor Lawrence for the
Yeah,
Jags. I'll take the Lions. I'll give them the 12 and a half points. That's fine.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a good pick. But I agree with you. I did like the Steelers, and it was really hard to pick this week. Dutton, your turn.
Very hard to pick. Agree with you. Was trying to stay away from division games because Wayne doesn't like them. A lot of money moving on the Bills. I'm picking the Chiefs until they lose. I'm picking the Chiefs +2.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, I like that too.
Before I get to my pick, why the hell are the Texans 7.5 points favorites over anybody right now? I know it's the Cowboys, but the only team I take the Texans by 7.5 over is themselves because they suck right now. They are a mess. Even if Collins is back, he's not full strength. They lost to the Jets. We have been making fun of the Jets for 9 weeks in a row this year, and they lost to the Jets. And I tell you all that to tell you that I'm taking the Jets -4 this week because I refuse to root against my Texans. I refuse more to root for the Cowboys to beat the Texans and cover the spread. And I love to root against Anthony Richardson, who is once again the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers, who we just told us that should be benched, the Aaron Rodgers-led Jets, giving 4 because if I'm 1-8 on the year, I may as well not use any rationale while I make my pick any longer. Who do we want to lock in? I am honestly good going with the Lions at 12.5 to
I
save.
am too. I was going to pick the Lions until Fee had them,
All right, let's do it.
especially after last week. I think they come
Lions giving
big.
12.5. And that means we're moving on. Fanduel Fees, stacks of the week. Go get them, Fee.
And this week again, it's the theme of the show this week is it was really hard for me to like come up with guys that I liked, it's salaries that I liked, stacks that I liked. It was really difficult trying to put something together this week. It was hard for me last week, to be honest. But yeah, so I've been kind of struggling a little bit lately. But here's the guys that I decided to put together this week. I'm starting us off with Brock Purdy because he has been very consistent. He's 8,400. I think he's only priced at like the 6th quarterback on the slate this week for FanDuel. They're playing Seattle. Seattle's defense against the pass has not been great. And I would love to stack him with Juwan Jennings at 6 because he's only 6,200, and I feel like Juwan Jennings has been playing very consistently as well over the last few weeks, while Brandon Ayuk has been out for the season. So, I really like the Purdy to Jennings stack this week. Stack number 2, because these guys are lower salaried quarterbacks, is why I like them, and that's Justin Herbert at 7,300 playing Cincinnati again. Part of this is Cincinnati's defense, not great against the pass. You can stack him with Lad McConkey at 6,300 or Quentin Johnston at 6K. More so, those guys are tournament type plays as opposed to cash type plays. But you could play Herbert. And you could even stack him with J.K. Dobbins if you want. Although, again, that's a question mark too, because Gus Edwards, back from injury, has been eaten into Dobbins carries as well. So that's a tough situation.
Before you go to the next one, are we starting to believe a little bit in Quentin Johnson? Like, is it time to maybe believe in this guy?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go too crazy, but like he does look fairly good.
The last few weeks, he has certainly looked good.
Yeah. Maybe he's starting to kind of come out of his shell.
Yeah, maybe figuring it all out.
Right.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and the last one here, I got Bo Nix at 7,400, so it's priced around the same amount as Herbert. They're playing Atlanta, and stacking with Cortland Sutton at 6,800. So, kind of a similar salary type situation, almost a similar type of game where you have two defenses that are not great against the pass. And then two one-offs this week that I really like. Chase Brown, who has been fantastic and is still not priced up, only at 6,800 against the Chargers. And George Pickens, who also has been fantastic, playing Baltimore, who could not stop the pass if you paid them $1 million.
They are paying them $1
They
million.
pay him a lot of
They can't
millions.
stop the fact.
There's a lot of $1 million out there.
Still can't stop the
And they
pass.
can do it. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah, right. I have a feeling we're going to talk a little bit more about Pickens in just a bit too. So let's move on to week four, fourth down for week 11, starts and sits. As I said, Dutton, not sure why you even showed up to the show last week. You got all your starts and sits wrong, but I think that might be a first in the 106 episodes or so.
Somebody had to do it, right?
As a show, we've been doing really well at sits this year, but we can't get really good on starts. So for our starts last week, we told you Baker, Dobbins, Addison, and Hawkinson. Hawkinson was the only one that hit. Let's do a little bit better this week. And before we get into it, reminder, this is Wednesday night, so watch those injury reports. And you have Arizona Cardinals, Carolina Panthers, New York Giants, and Tampa Bay Bucks on a bye. And probably, as we mentioned, but it was so hard to make picks this week, probably 8 of the worst NFL matchups in our lifetime. Anyway, moving on. Dunton, start, quarterback, go.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes against the Bills. I really think this could be a shootout. We need a good 4:00 game. The 4:00 games this past week were horrendous.
Horrendous.
I was excited. No work on Monday, Veterans Day off. Yay, I'm gonna watch football. It's gonna be, oh my gosh. I fell asleep during the Sunday night game because I was like, this is terrible. Jared Goff keeps throwing interceptions. Like, it was bad. From about 3:30 on, football was terrible.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes against the Bills in a shootout.
See?
Yeah, I'm taking Brock Purdy. I talked about him in Fanduel. They're playing Seattle, and he's been consistent. So start Brock Purdy.
I'm going with Bo Nix. The Falcons have sacked the quarterback 9 times this year, and he's really mobile. And I think we're going to see him scoot in the end zone as well as run one in, or pass one in this week. The Falcons' 9 sacks this year is not as funny a stat as the fact that with injuries last week, the Giants had no one with an interception on their roster in London or Germany. Like, no one on their roster had an interception. Well, that is fantastic. Anyway, who do we want to lock in?
I'll take Mahomes.
All right.
No, wait. Maybe we should go Knicks because
I like Bo Nix. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's go Bo Nix. Running back, Fee, start with you this time.
I'm going with David Montgomery this week against the Jaguars. I think that so the Jaguars are obviously bad. I feel like the Lions should control the ball and not have to pass it so much. And they want to run the ball anyway. They're a running team when it comes down to it. And David Montgomery should get the bulk of those carries over Jahmyr Gibbs. So start David Montgomery against the Jags this week.
Dutton.
I said shootout in Buffalo. I'm going with James Cook against the Chiefs. I expect a lot of screen passes, a lot of receptions.
Yeah, and I am going with Nick Chubb. They are playing the Saints. For one, I don't think Jameis Winston can throw the football very well. And for two, the Saints have allowed the second most amount of rushing touchdowns to the running back this season with 12. And I like Nick Chubb, even if he doesn't have a lot of yards, I like him finding the end zone. So I have Nick Chubb there. What do we think?
I like Monty because I was going to pick him till Fee.
All right. Well, that's 2 right there. So let's do Monty. Fee, we're going to start with you on wide receiver.
Yeah, George Pickens. I talked about him in the Fanduel. Baltimore. Yeah, Baltimore can't stop the pass at all. And him and Russell Wilson have just been playing out of their minds. And everyone talks about the whole Russell Wilson moonball situation. Hey man, when you got a guy like George Pickens who can get up there and catch that ball, like you can't even put 3 guys on him and he's going to get up there and catch the ball. So, especially now against a team like Baltimore who again can't stop the pass, George Pickens should have a field day.
And then Dutton.
Yeah, I don't think I need to say an answer here because we all were going to have the same exact thought.
Yeah, my answer was the right answer is Pickens. So let's lock in Pickens. I think that's the first time that's ever happened on show history as well. Uh, tight end, I'll start because we're gonna get butt heads in a little bit there, Fee. But
Yep, we sure are.
I'm going with Zach Ertz. I do know if you look at the numbers, the Eagles have been solid against the tight end. But I just think the revenge game aspect, and now that it's the Commanders Eagles rivalry, I'm going Zach Ertz. Fee.
I'm starting Dawson Knox for the Bills. Like Dutton said, that should be a shootout, and no Dalton Kincaid with a knee injury,
He's
which is
questionable right
big.
now.
Well, I don't think he's gonna play.
Yeah, me neither. So I'm sitting.
I think that Dawson Knox becomes a big part of that offense because yes, they have Cook and Keon Coleman's probably out as well. So,
Yeah.
He is
they're
out for
they're
sure.
hurting at
Yep.
the receiver position. So Dawson Knox should be a big part of that offense this week.
Dutton.
Tyler Kraft against the Bears. I think the Packers are going on a run. Starts this weekend, and I think this offense. Tyler Kraft has been looking good lately.
Tucker.
Tucker, not Tyler. Tucker, sorry.
I like Kraft.
Yeah, we'll go Kraft.
I just don't trust Bills. You know that.
I know.
I can't get behind the Bills. All right, your starts of the week. Quarterback Bo Nix, running back Montgomery, wide receiver, the first unanimous pick in 3-and-out history, George Pickens, and tight end Tucker Tyler Kraft. Let's move on to sits. We got 3 right last week, so we did fine there. Sits, Fee, we'll start with you at quarterback.
I'm sitting Geno Smith against the 49ers. I know that he has thrown for the most yards in the league this year so far. But DK Metcalf is banged up, and San Francisco's defense is pretty good. So
Dutton. I was actually thinking about this, Dutton. I
just think a short week, division game, lights are hot, bright. Jaden Daniels against the Eagles. That Eagles defense is playing really well right now. And I think, I'm sitting Jaden Daniels.
I said this. The reason I didn't go with him is because I said this at Jaden Daniels last week, and I was right. And I didn't want to see Jaden Daniels have 2 bad weeks because I like watching him. He's fun for football.
Right.
So it was more of like a mental psych out than actually. But he was the first person I looked at. But I did go with Kirk Cousins primarily, not because Denver's defense is good, but because he's Kirk Cousins. So who do we want to lock in?
Let's do Daniels.
Yeah, I think Daniels is the right one. I'm so sad to say that because I do like to watch him play. Running backs, Fee, start with you.
I'm sitting Najee Harris against the Ravens for all the reasons that they can't stop the pass. They're really good at stopping the run, and I think Pittsburgh should really throw the ball the entire game. So sit Najee Harris.
Yeah, Dunton.
I am sitting DeAndre Swift against the Packers.
I'm going to sit. I don't think Brian Robinson is he going to be back this week? Even it doesn't matter. If Brian Robinson is back this week, I would sit him. If it's Austin Eckler, I would sit him. The Eagles have allowed just 2 rushing TDs and no receiving TDs to the running back this year.
Well, one more thing about the whole Najee Harris thing. You should start Jaylen Warren because I think that he should be involved in the passing game, especially if Baltimore scores as much as I think they're going to score.
Yeah. Who do we want to sit? I kind of agree with you on the aspect that it's going to be a passing shootout.
I kind of agree with you there.
So I could get behind Najee Harris.
Why aren't they flexing like that game or the Bills game to Sunday night? Like, why are we
already?
Are they allowed to flex the games?
That's what
yet?
I didn't know. Like, are we there yet?
I don't know that we're there yet.
Usually like week 13 or 14. I think after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Wide receiver, I'm going to tell you to sit Jaden Reed because as bad as the Bears are on offense, their secondary is pretty solid, and they're going to obviously focus on the Packers' best receiver, who I still think talent-wise is Jaden Reed. Fate.
Yeah, we talked about him earlier in the show, but CeeDee Lamb is a sit.
He's a liability. Yeah. Dutton. Fee's not going to like this one.
No, I'm sitting Terry McLaurin because I'm sitting Jaden Daniels. I think it's gonna be hard for them. It's not that I don't like them, Fee. I just think this is a hard game for them.
No, I agree. The Eagles secondary has been playing lights out, so
I will lock in CD Lamb immediately if everyone else is good with
Oh
that.
yeah, for sure. CD Lamb. Week 12 is when they can start flexing games.
Week 12, okay.
no, it's next week.
So CD Lamb at wide receivers, your sit. Fee, let's go to you on tight end to start because it's opposite of what I said.
Yeah, so I'm sitting Zach Ertz this week, and I know that it's a revenge game for him, but I just don't think, like, we just talked about it. Jaden, you guys are sitting Jaden Daniels, you're sitting Terry McLaurin. I just want a piece of that Commanders offense to sit. Not the Eagles have also allowed the 5th fewest yards to tight ends this season and have yet to allow a touchdown to the tight end.
That I knew.
They are the only other team that has not allowed a touchdown to the tight end, I think, is the Chargers, I believe. And just because the Eagles defense has been playing so well, I think that you got to sit Zach Ertz this week.
Done.
Revenge game or not?
I'm sitting Dalton Kincaid because when I looked it up earlier, he was already questionable. Fee says he's out, so definitely sit him if he's out. But I was already worried about him not playing, and I just didn't think he was gonna get. I think he was gonna be a decoy if he did play. So that's why I was sitting.
I'm going to sit Turd Ferguson against the Texans. The Texans have actually allowed a lot of touchdowns to the tight end. I don't know the exact number. It's like got to be 4 or 5. But that quarterback situation is
he threw for what did he throw for, like 40 yards last week?
Oh, it was bad.
89, I think it was.
Cooper Rush is definitely not the same quarterback he was when. Remember, he came on the field. I felt like he beat the Eagles at one point.
He was 5-1 until last week.
Are they not starting Trey Lance?
I don't know. I mean,
Would you? Did you see him? He didn't look very good.
Yeah, I don't know what they do. I think they go dual quarterback. That's what I'm saying. I think they each are going to get like drives.
I think they start CD Lamb at quarterback and hope for the best.
He's thrown the ball before. Are we locking in Turd? Is that what
We are?
Yeah.
Okay. So to sit, it's Jaden Daniels at quarterback, Najee Smith at running back, CD Lamb at wide receiver.
Najee Harris.
What'd I say?
Najee Smith.
Who's Najee Smith?
Ozzie Smith is cousin? I don't
know. Turd Ferguson at tight end. That should do it. I think we covered everything, gentlemen. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
I think you're just gonna.
You know what? Trade deadlines are coming up, so just keep your eye out, keep your eyes peeled, and try to make some deals before the trade deadline.
And if you are a longtime listener and make a trade at the deadline, let us know. We will discuss. We'll break it down on the show next week. That's what we should do. Good idea.
We love trades because they almost never happen. So
right.
Yeah. At least good ones. All right. Nothing. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Then we'll see you next time. Oh, give us a like, subscribe, hit the buttons, do them all. We'll see you next week on 3 and Out.